Welcome to our second edition of Parsha Thoughts, Friday Parsha Thoughts for your Shabbos table. This week's Parsha is Parshas Tzav, which is the second Parsha now in a row, which talks in laborious detail about all the sacrifices. And as we mentioned last week, the Torah is eternal, so it has messages for us. But when they're talking about sacrifices, we have to dig a little bit deeper to find what some of those messages are. A wise rabbi once said that, or once noticed that most of the commentary written and talked about is usually at the beginning of the parsha. I'm going to jump all the way to the end because I find a remarkable thing right at the very end of the parsha. The end of the parsha talks about the quarantine. It's right at the very end if you want to look. The situation is at the very end of the parsha is the 7 days before the Mishkan has its grand opening for the very first time. And Moshe tells Aaron and his sons, you guys stay at the tent of meeting, at the Ohel Moed, you guys stay here for 7 days, and then we'll have the grand opening. So that's a curious thing. Before we delve into that, what must be mentioned, the first thing usually that comes to mind when we talk about a quarantine in the Torah for 7 days is the Mitzorah. A person who has tzaras, commonly thought of as a person violating the sin of Lashon Hara gets tzaras, they get sent out of the camp for 7 days. What I'd like to do is divide those two instances into, are you being quarantined for a good purpose or a bad purpose? Which makes me, I don't know why, it makes me think of Wizard of Oz. Are you a good witch or a bad witch? For the Mitzorah, obviously it's for a bad purpose. And the idea is that if he can at least get over his tzaras, then he can come back into the camp. He may not be any better than he was when he left, but at least he's back in the camp and he's not doing the Lashon Hara. Here, clearly the purpose is some sort of growth, some sort of, it's for a very constructive purpose that Aaron and his sons need to mentally prepare themselves to come back out into the world and to open up, having the grand opening of the Mishkan. Obviously, the analogy is to us. What are we going to use? We're all in quarantine. We're all stay at home. So what are we going to do with that? Are we going when it's over? Are we going to come out and are we just business back to normal, or are we using these 7 days for anything constructive? We can be reaching out to family. We can be shopping for others. We have extra family time. Some people might say too much family time, whatever. The question is what are we learning during our quarantine? What are we acquiring? And the key thing here is, what are we acquiring from ourselves, or acquiring for ourselves, as opposed to we're usually impacted by the surroundings. So can we impact upon ourselves rather than surrounding society? I realize it's a little bit different with everybody having access to internet, so we are impacted a little bit by the surroundings. But I think at least the symbolic nature of that is a lesson that we need to take. I think this is evident in the Seder, as we mentioned in one of the Seder classes. There's a halacha that says that even if a person is conducting a Seder by himself, he needs to ask himself the 4 questions. So clearly the message there is, are we going to be the same person, or are we going to change from the experience of the Seder? We were slaves to all that was controlling us, but now we're free. And the same thing with this all quarantine that we're in. We're sort of slaves, and we're hoping to come out of this. And in the inimitable words of Lord Jedi Jonathan Sachs, in his little message today, he says, yes, we're going to come out, we're going to be free, just as the Jews came out and free. And the question, or the distinction to be made, is that we're not, the way a Jew properly looks at this is, we're not free to do as we want, but we are free to do as we ought. Jonathan Sachs has quite a way of words. I want to quickly, we do have time for one or two more quick thoughts. I want to mention one of them. Again, lessons that we can get from the sacrifices, the offerings. So one of them, part of what makes reading about the sacrifices so boring is that part of the elaborate detail and the halachas of it include who gets to eat what. Some of the offerings are eaten by the Kohen, some of them are burnt, some of them the Kohen gets part of it, some of it the user gets to eat some of it. And there's also all these strict rules on the time period that these offerings can be eaten. Some of them have 2 days, some of them a day and a half. There's only one korban, one offering that you have only 1 day to eat it. And it's the Korban Toda, the Thanksgiving offering, and that's very curious. Welcome, Lee. And that's very curious. Why? I need to explain the Korban Toda. The Korban Toda, you need to bring 40 loaves as an offering, 10 each of 4 different kinds of grain. Baked grain. So three of the kinds, 30 of the loaves are unleavened. 10 of them are like matzah. Another 20 of them are different kinds of unleavened bread. And then 10 of them are regular loaves of bread. And the person who brings it, the Torah tells us, has only 1 day to eat all that. Well, that's impossible. Why should the Torah put the smallest amount of time on one of the biggest offerings? And the answer given, I really like this answer, is that you're right. You can't eat it all. So you're going to have to have a meal, a party at your house, and you're going to have to invite people over to eat some of it. And then people are going to come over and they're saying, "Why are you having this seudah? Why are you having this meal?" And you're going to have to tell them this miraculous thing that caused you to bring this Todah offering. I neglected to mention, you bring a Todah offering only when you have been in a dangerous situation and you are now free from it. Birchas HaGomel, which we say at the Torah in front of a minyan, is modeled after that. We need to proclaim our thanks in public to people. Now, if we think about it, Pesach itself sort of requires a Todah offering. Pesach is exactly that situation, right? We're in a dangerous situation and we were redeemed from it. So the curious thing, so another connection to all this is, I want to talk about chametz. We only bring chametz as an offering, only happens in the Mishkan at the Beis HaMikdash only in 2 instances. One is the private offering, the Todah, which we just talked about, and that's the Thanksgiving offering when we've been delivered from danger. The other, the only community offering that has chametz in it, is on Shavuos. So if you think about it, Pesach we're eating the chametz, and Shavuos we're eating Pesach we're eating the matzah, Shavuos we're eating the chametz. And in a way, this is like our Todah offering with one difference. The Todah offering, we eat all the unleavened stuff for Pesach, but it's an incomplete Todah. It's an incomplete thanks until we get to Shavuos. At Shavuos, we get to eat our chametz, and our thankfulness is complete. The idea being that, again, quoting Jonathan Sachs yet one more time, we're not just thankful that we got out of Mitzrayim, we're thankful that we got out of Mitzrayim and received the Torah and received a structure by which we can live our lives and fulfill our mission here on earth. One other very quick Torah thought, Rabbi Deitch likes this one. There is one of the verses in this week's portion, one of the sections talks about the Ner Tamed, the light that should be that should continuously burn in the Beis HaMikdash. The Rambam divides it up into two separate mitzvahs. He says that section gives us a positive mitzvah that we need to keep the fire going, as well as a negative mitzvah. We're not allowed to let the fire go out. The Rebbe has a great take on that. He says that corresponds to two mitzvahs that we should be engaging in now. One is that corresponding to not letting the fire go out, that corresponds to not letting our surroundings influence us in a negative way. That society and all the schmutz that we have to deal with, we shouldn't let that hurt our neshama so much. And as far as keeping the fire going, he said that's a perfect analogy to what we should be doing on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we look inside to our Pintel Yid, we look inside to the fire that burns within us, and we shouldn't let it go out. We should be stoking those coals and spending Shabbos on that. The Maggid of Mezerich has a great take that I like. He says, the words in the Torah are lo sichbe, which literally means do not extinguish. And he says, and this is true, with Hebrew, there's different kinds of word orders. He says it could also be read as extinguish the lo, extinguish the no. He says the commandment is for us to extinguish the negativity within us and extinguish those negative things which adversely impact upon our neshamas, adversely impact our lives, our Yiddishkeit. That ends our quick 15 minutes of Torah. I just want to add one more plea. We all know that it's hard to ask for help, especially if it involves gashmias. If you need money or you need help you need somebody to run groceries for you. And with Pesach coming up, there's a lot of people that want to give help. So I want to give a message to everybody who either needs help or luckily most of us in our community do not need help. But if we know somebody who needs help, please get this message to them. And that is this, that if you ask for help, you'll actually be doing a chesed because there are people lined up who want to help. And they can do that only if you ask for it. So if you need any help, if you know of anybody that needs any help, please have them contact Rabbi Deitch and we'll work it out. We'll help you out. There's on the group chat list, people are doing shopping runs and saying, does anybody need anything? Be easy to do for just, if you need any kind of help, please ask. All right, so this is going to be a strange Shabbos again with all our shut-ins and this and that. So let us approach Shabbos maybe with a little bit of a chiddush, with a little bit of a new attitude. Discover something new about Shabbos this starting tonight and tomorrow, and maybe hopefully we'll grow from this coming Shabbos. So everybody have a great Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye bye.